Hey there, I'm Faye Pale from the Lived Perspective. I'm a white-skinned, short, red and brown-haired human, and you can't quite see the flecks of grey tonight, in a blue cable knit fisherman's jumper, standing, leaning up against the edge of a heated outdoor pool, which looks very blue tonight, and looks out over the skyscape on the unceded lands on which I dwell, with a hint of the outline of Mount Ainslie in the background. Bringing you Mental Health Month Musings 31. These pocket notes on person-centered care. We made it. I had all these cool ideas about maybe doing this funnel post, from inside of that pool. But today had other ideas for me, including a computer that wanted to be a proverbial pain in the proverbial? While I was desperately working on a submission for a publication deadline. So that and the rain, which is kind of just now eased, meant that posting from the pool's really quite untenable, even though it's heated. So, but yes, it kind of does sum up, though, the rationale behind my decision, and maybe desire to step back from social media in the way that we have been engaging with it over the last 2 or 3 years. When our posting first started to significantly shift, it was actually at the other side of the first lockdown, when social media went to pot in the early part of the pandemic. I just watched people everywhere go into panic mode. And I knew it. I understood it because I lived with it every day of my life prior to the pandemic. But as people continue to become distressed and express that distress and harness social media to broadcast that distress, I recognized that behavior because it was my behavior for a long, long time. And so through lockdown, I was thinking a lot about how I might shift the way I post, because I wanted people to remember the good stuff, because I knew the ups and downs of this journey very well. But many people, this was their first real ability to identify with an adverse experience of distress. I can remember, actually, I put up a post one day, which was early in the lockdown, where people were just attacking each other, and the post kind of sounded like, please don't pick on my friends, you're being bullies, and realised it had no value and pulled it very quickly. But it gave me a lot of time to think about, how we utilize social media. And while it wasn't a very deliberate shift, as my life actually started to expand, many people's lives were contracting. I was completely isolated geographically from my family and friends after having escaped the Black Summer bushfires and landing in the Central West without knowing anyone right before a lockdown, apart from my daughter. So social media for me became this place of going, there's this really cool thing that's happened, and this is what I'm learning. Because prior to the pandemic, I was pretty much socially isolated, reclusive, shut-in. Not because anybody made me that, but because I was terrified to interact with the world. Social media became a place for me to test my thoughts. Not deliberately, but as I went, there's this thing and this is what I'm thinking. People started saying, hey, that's valid. That's interesting. You have something interesting to say. I appreciate this, which meant so much to me, because we had lived through so much isolation, so much fear and doubt and inability to trust our own inner voice. And if there's anything social media can do, it can provide a platform where you get to explore what your voice might sound like. We hadn't been posting for any real reason apart from saying, hey, there's this cool thing that I've seen or I'm learning or I'm thinking about, And this is how I see the world. What happened though was that people started paying attention, and we weren't prepared for that. Especially when we really didn't even know how to fully understand and articulate the multiplicities of ourselves in any way that might feel safe. So as our opportunities began to expand, walk under the shelter because it's starting to rain. As our opportunities began to expand and our world began to match that expansion, we started to learn what it was to have a voice and to be seen and be heard, but from the protection of a fourth wall. It's safe to be a talking head. It's safe to have an opinion when it's written. And in fact, as a writer, having an altar that is only a writer, and that is how we synthesize our warring aspects of ourselves into something that makes sense for all of us to agree on. It's a very safe space. But this year, as we haven't hit another lockdown, as we've started to step out into the community and we've started to engage with real people, it's been confronting. Not because we didn't have friends in the past, but we didn't understand ourselves the way we understand ourselves for ourselves now. And so there's been this big challenge of, I'm learning this and I don't even know how it fits for myself. So how do I describe that, and how do I make that real for others that actually want to understand how to help me be and stay in places that we desperately want to be in and stay in? One of the other things we have seen in social media is that while many respect and value what we have to say, we get a lot of backlash in private messenger. People that will reach out and say, hey, you talked about this, but you didn't actually represent my perspective. People that we've never met before. And it became a place initially of saying, first of all, I want to push that away. Second of all, I want to understand why you feel invalidated. And thirdly, learning that is the lateral violence that I was referring to yesterday. People feel like they don't have a voice. And when people feel like someone is expressing something that is similar to but not their own experience, it's sometimes safer to try and ask that person through our own distress to describe our experience as well. But that's the challenge of lived experience and stepping into these spaces. We can't rely forever on other people's voices. We have to learn how to use our own. And sometimes that means we're loud and rageful and messy and angry. And I get it. And we've been there. But we're ready to move beyond it. And we actually need to start, we need to be in communities of relationship, which we increasingly have opportunities to do. But we also know that being in those communities of relationship means that we need a lot of downtime, a lot of peace and quiet to then synthesize what we have learned, to accept somewhere in us the love that we are receiving and the acceptance. And that's not easy. And so when social media then demands from us that someone needs our attention beyond our friends that we have on social media, total strangers who want to have an opinion on how we are representing ourselves and them somehow by extension, it's too much. So for those that we have grown to know and love in this space, thank you for the support. For those that have followed with interest and curiosity, we will always be here to answer intelligent questions. And if you're Canberra local, we will absolutely meet up and have a coffee with you and a chat with you. We need to put our energy where it is best served for us and others, and that's actually in physical face-to-face building of relationships, in the workplace, in arts engagement, in life in general. We will continue to post. When we do something cool, we will continue to post. We've got some cool things coming already. November is actually shaping up to be almost as crazy as October was, which we weren't expecting. And we need to take it a day at a time. So I guess this is so long, and thanks for all the fish. If you know where to find us, reach out and find us. We do have our Facebook page. The business page will continue to post business posts. The Instagram post will cross-post to the personal page with some of the photos attached to songs that I think people have quite enjoyed recently, which kind of gives you a snapshot of cool things we're looking at and thinking about. Twitter, LinkedIn, and the Facebook business page will keep up with cool things, cool publications, things that we're doing. And there's also, of course, the Communities of Collaboration podcast if you want to get behind and support that, as well as the Lived Perspective website. Big love to everyone, because I know you've all played a part, even if it's been jarring, even if it's taught us that we need to learn to step back. I think of it as kind of Marie Kondoing our life and where our energy lies. If it doesn't bring joy and if it doesn't bring life, it needs to be left behind so that we can continue to grow and move on and trust ourselves in the real world. If you camp at local or you're anywhere where we happen to land, we'll catch you on the flip side.